Shulam Evrocha. We're going to learn a bit about Parshas Yisro, Kabbalas Torah. I was reminiscing. I remember when I was a bocher, there were special moments. I remember there would be like a quiet would descend upon the whole oilam by the tish, by the Bava Rebbe Zeichel Tzadik Baruch, and it would be late at night, and everyone there had already sat and heard the Rov's Torah and wondrous Torah thoughts, and it would be then just after the last L'chaim. The Rebbe would ask for a special Zmiris or a special sefer of Zmiris that he had, and he would turn the well-worn pages till he reached a special spot, and everyone would hold their breath. Time would seem to stand still. Then the voice of the tzaddik would ring out with the descriptive words of the niggin of the song. Yoim Shabboson. Now we don't sing this niggin too often. Yoim Shabboson Eini L'Shkoyach. It's one of those. In Bobov, actually, they sang it twice a year. Shabbos Parshas Noyach and Parshas Yisro. Because the mainstream of the niggin of the Zmiris is that it speaks of the dove that flew out of Noach's ark to find peace, to find shalom. According to the Zohar, it found dry ground on which to rest just before Shabbos. And the Yidden are likened to that dove, for we are also seeking some place of peace and tranquility in the chaos of the storms that surround us, especially today in the Golas COVID that takes us and puts us from one side to the other. We don't know. There's new rumors, and is it going to be all right? And I got the shot. Is that going to help me? We're living in difficult times. And the dove that is ourselves seeks a place of menucha. And we find that the time of menucha is Shabbos. Shabbos is the time of true serenity. And the other motif of the niggin is the giving of the Torah on Har Sinai. At that time, we called out Na'asa v'nishma. We will do and we will listen. Chazal asked, how could I say that my neighbor is going to listen? We all had this inspiration. So how do I know? But Na'asa v'nishma, I'll do it. No, it says we. So how do I vouchsafe for my next door neighbor, the 1-2 blocks down? Because at that moment we opened up our hearts and we understood the possibility of true peace. And that only comes when we hold on to the words of Na'asa v'nishma. So they called out Na'asa because they saw within each other the certainty of holding on and to the shalom that Hashem was offering them. Now the singing of this niggin in Bobov was always a highlight. Because the Reuven Rubin Shlita, he would lead it with such dynamic warmth. And you could actually envision the sweet dove flying about in search of his safety. The Na'asa v'nishma coming down. People crying, yeah, Na'asa v'nishma. The Reuven didn't have an operatic voice. And yet this song stirred the neshama with each word. He did not just sing the niggin. He actually became the words. His voice would soar. He would hold out his arms and his head would sway with such emotion Now, eyes seem to be connected with Shemayim above, even today. And it's been many, many, many years. The tune of that poignant beseeching still burns in my heart. The Reuven Rubin would sing over and over again the words, Yoina Motza. The dove is looking, he found rest. There shall rest the exhausted kindler. These are so poignant, filled with so much hope. We all seek to alight upon an oasis of calm, especially, as I said, these days. And that can only be found in the Nasiv and Nishma, the openness that clinging on to the Torah, acceptance of the Torah. But there are storms that blow us off course. Our times are particularly difficult. It's not unique in that we've always had problems with youth going a bit off the rebellion and becoming lost in the jaws of the newest source of moral destruction. Each generation has its nisyanas. Back before the war, it was socialism, communism. The Jews were downtrodden. It was after the First World War. Their families were totally destroyed. Today we have technology. Technology can be a wonderful thing. As I speak to you now, only through technology. But it could be a devouring force of evil as well. And we should never fool ourselves. But this is the long line, the newest of a long line of corrupting forces in our lives. This technology or whatever comes with its own enticement. And unfortunately, in certain quarters, the filth is all-encompassing. But we must ask ourselves if this is a symptom or the cause. For some of our young, the dove flies and never finds a place to rest its feet. Shabbos table becomes a battleground. Parents can't cope. They don't understand. The storm clouds never seem to disappear. Let me tell you, I worked with at-risk teenagers before that term became popular. I'm talking about 40 some odd years ago. Time and again I found that if we could get the parents to accept their child for who he or she is, the heat would be turned down and the anger would dissipate. We understand that the Svurim before the Second World War, cried out about these corruption and the forces that were of their time. So, but let's not wax nostalgic about those days before the war. It was a terrible rebellion in the Heimische world. Yidden tell of whole households turning away from the Torah in a matter of months and years, just short years. In Poland, there were very few families that didn't have their own tragedies. Girls leaving home, boys joining the communists. The whole reason that Soros Shneur made the Beis Yaakov was because of the turmoil that was left after the First World War. Anti-Torah blasphemy was heard and read on every street corner. What caused all this chaos? It wasn't technology. It wasn't even television. It was unhappiness. The young felt estranged from their family. Their parents were working all hours. And just to have a bit of bread, it was a struggle. There was tremendous hunger. The children had no shared reality with their parents. End of a workday. Father would escape to the shtibel. The mother was left behind to weep alone, while stark hunger walked the streets. Outside, empty promises were beckoning, being made for a better tomorrow. The children of the poor To them, these calls rang true. The parents didn't understand them. They had no real teachers. Who were the teachers in those days? And so they let themselves be drawn into the anarchy. The dove flies above the stormy waters. The dove of Yiddishkeit seeking its own small foothold. The Torah home must be that place where a person can find and be at ease. Shabbos Kodesh should be a light in a world grown a bit cold and unfortunately dark. Sing its songs, Tatas. Cherish the gifts Hashem has bestowed on us. Speak to your young. Tell them of your own personal flight of seeking and how the Torah has become your safe place. And never, if that's not the case, then sit down and find a mentor to help you. Because if we don't have the safe place of where the dove landed, if we don't have the Nasiv and Nishma, who are we? What are we? Let your kids know that you were trying to understand their fears and their needs. And of course, we also can't allow our homes to be a host for corruption in the outside world. The ark that Noach built had 2 layers of pitch inside and out. The outside world must be kept away from sensitive hearts of our maturing children. And at the same time, the love from within the home has to be preserved. It's very hard with all the technology that we're living with to shelter the children. But if we give them the love from within and tell them that this is how we act, we don't read these things or we don't follow these things on technology. Well, they have an alternative. They know that they're loved. So they just won't turn to these things. They'll have their hearts. They'll understand. The Rebbe sang about the dove circling the sky, finding its foothold, finding true Shabbos. Let's consider together what we could do for our own doves and give them a foothold in the Torah, in the Na'asav and Nishma, that they can make their own.